Hello, good evening, everyone. It's Bryon and Keith, and it's a Dig Route podcast. We got triple boxes going. Hey, thanks for joining us on this Thursday. Always great to catch up with everybody. Talking with the PackerReport.com writer W. Keith Rodink. I'm Brian Groff, and this is a Dig Route podcast. And Keith, we don't have Jana again this week as she has gotten into a territory without a good cell signal. So it's just going to be you and I for the next 20-25 minutes or so.
All right, we'll make it work.
Well, I don't know about the Packers making it work. Right now, 2-2-1. The Vikings right there. What a jumbled NFC North. You have the Bears team on the top, which the Packers beat. The Lions team on the bottom, which they lost to. So what are you making of this division at this point?
You know, usually without much of a preseason, it kind of takes the 3 or 4 games that first month of the season to really figure out, who's where and what do you know about a team. But I don't know. I feel like this year, I mean, do we really know much of anything? I mean, I think the Bears are legitimately good. The Lions beat the Patriots. They beat the Packers. The Vikings lost to that an awful Bills team. I really think got caught off guard with the whole Everson Griffin thing that was happening the night before. Packers just beat the snot out of the Bills and really, I think, exposed them for the team that they're probably going to look like for most of the season. But it's a weird picture in the NFC North right now. I don't know.
And I guess we don't really know with Aaron Rodgers either. I mean, the knee injury, his numbers are down. It's not what we typically see out of him, whether it's completions or passer rating. He doesn't practice a whole lot, and we know about a lot of the talk of the chemistry between him or lack of chemistry between him and some of the younger receivers. So what can you take away as far as an evaluation of the quarterback at this point?
Well, I mean, definitely, I think in fairness, we have to talk about the limited mobility. And again, I think, most quarterbacks in the league probably watch Aaron Rodgers and they watch him scramble and they watch him buy time, and they would love to have the, mobility issues that he seems to have. And of course, you've had Randall Cobb out of the lineup. You had Geronimo Allison, who we can't really, claim him as a veteran, but I mean, he's a guy that's experienced in this offense and definitely seems to have some sort of chemistry with Rodgers, but he doesn't look like himself. Brian, so far, if you look at the first quarter of this season and compare it to what he's done through the first quarter of the season over the course of his career in 2008, this year he's completed 51.7% of his passes and his passer rating is 78.4. So career, he is at 66% of his passes and a passer rating of 107. So he is nowhere near the bar that he has really set for himself through the first quarter of the season. We've seen a lot of times where they've started off slow. They were down 17-0 to Chicago. They were down 24-0 to Detroit in the first half. They were down 28-10 to Washington in the first half. So even some of these numbers are really kind of a factor of comebacks in big second halves. So, I mean, it's been an un-Aaron Rodgers-like start to the year, I think, and we're seeing the results of that, which, again, is a 2-2-1 record, which all things considered, maybe that's exactly what it should be.
From what I understand, they were down in the Lions game, too.
Yeah, they were down a lot, man. That was bad. You can't wait so long to get things started. And again, one of the things that we've talked about, and I think a lot of people were just, scratching their head or pulling their hair out about, was where was Aaron Jones? Aaron Jones, 7 carries for 40 yards, and he looked so good. He's such a dynamic player when he gets the ball. Unfortunately, his pass catching rate is abysmal. I mean, last year it was historically bad. I think he had a 1.2% catch rate. It was worst in the league. I think I want to say he only caught half the targets even thrown to him, which wasn't a lot in the first place. So, when Mike McCarthy made a big deal of going out of his way to say there's more to playing running back in the Packers offense than running the ball. And, that sounds like coach speak, but when you get down so far in the first half, it takes him out of the game. That said, you go back to that drive where it was Jones running the ball and getting them downfield, and then they end up throwing 3 incompletions. And it's still there's a lot of frustration, I think, justifiably so, from fans.
So do you believe if this is a situation where the Packers are leading and they need to run more, is it the pass catching ability that's keeping them off the field from playing?
I think so. I think when Equinemius St. Brown made a few nice plays. Marquez Valdez-Scantling made some nice plays, but it's still, this is really the first taste, especially when Rodgers isn't practicing much. This is the first time that those guys are, kind of connecting with each other. And again, Aaron, for whatever reason, the mobility, not having his normal guys in there that he's used to. I mean, he hasn't looked sharp. It's been a combination of things. There was the 3rd and 4 play where Rodgers ran out of bounds to the sideline and got rolled up on it. Thankfully, didn't get hurt worse, but he had Valdez-Scantling open in the middle of the field. I think he had Jamal Williams open down the field. There were other plays where, he's forcing stuff into Jimmy Graham. So it doesn't look in sync at all.
We have some viewers who are hopping on and saying hello. So if anyone has a comment out there, anyone has a question, we'd love to hear from you. Keith loves the questions. We'll see if one of them is, where's Chuck Cecil this week?
I know. He's Chuck is back in his usual resting spot. So we'll I'm in parts unknown. I'm in a new venue in the Rorting household. So we'll put something new and interesting in the background.
For all we know, it's your garage with a curtain.
Maybe it is. We don't know what is behind this mystery curtain.
Ooh, curtain number 2.
I know. That'll.
So I guess this kind of pushes off the inevitable just a little bit, but we can't get through the week without talking about Mason Crosby. Rough, tough day for him. How do you move forward from here? I mean, there's so much. It's just the continuing highlight or low light reel on Monday of just seeing kick after kick after kick, just not being converted. And it was, different directions, different situations, just wasn't good. But how does he move forward from here?
It's pretty stunning. And I think, if you have the misfortune of going on social media after something like that, I mean, I think the fans were pretty harsh. Nobody should be judged by their worst day at work, whatever your profession is, finance, working on the line, marketing, sports writing, kicking footballs. Nobody should be judged by their worst day. So, hopefully fans and certainly his coaches and teammates took the tack that this is a guy that has made big kicks for them for a dozen years. The kick at Dallas in the playoffs, kicks in the Super Bowl, kicks to win games. So we saw this out of Mason. I think it was it 2015 where he had a series of missed kicks, and oddly enough, none of those misses that season actually cost them a game. I think you can look at this game too and say, certainly things would have been a little different, but when you have 3 turnovers, I think anytime you have 3 turnovers, that's the stat you should always look to in every game. I mean, they had 521 yards of offense. It's the most total yards they've ever had in a loss. I think the second closest was a loss to the Falcons back in 1983. But anytime you have turnovers, you have to start there. So if he makes those kicks, if he makes 4 kicks in an extra point, they still could lose that game. You can't turn the ball over. I mean, they gave up 10 points there. They gave him a short field. Mason had 20 on the under, huh? That's what Joe said. I can see him now. Now that's the one that I see that pops up. But certainly makeable kicks. He's never missed more than 2 kicks any other game in his career. So it's really crazy. I don't know how many kickers have missed that many kicks. I got to think if there's a stat on if you've missed 3 kicks in a game, I got to think your chances of missing the 4th one is just phenomenal. At the point that he's changing his shoe, all I can think is it's probably not the shoe. It's probably up here. And who knows why? I mean, it's like a hitter that goes into a slump. But I mean, it's not just one guy. That was certainly glaring. But I mean, I'm not sure it was, in the microcosm of the game, that much more glaring than Rodgers hanging onto the ball too long, rolling out and getting strip sacked twice. So I think I like that they put Mason back in at the end. and thank God he made it. And I think the reaction of his teammates, Rodgers giving him a hug, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about how that team feels about him and his contribution, not for one game, but for a dozen years worth of games and big kicks. So, I mean, I can put the happy face on it and say that's, sports and the life lessons and all that. But I think that's true. I mean, he has got many more big kicks ahead of him.
So, Keith, did you ever feel like you ever filed a story at PackerReport.com and it was an 0 for 1?
It's happened. It's happened. Yes.
It's happened. Do you ever find, and I found this in interviewing several kickers, whether it's Dave Rayner or Ryan Longwell, Mason Crosby, you get very technical when you speak with them. I find that you get that more with that position than you do with any other. Do you find that? Yes. Because it's so often equated to a golf swing, and a lot of those guys are really good golfers, and that's kind of their other big thing, and they're obviously talented athletes. But do you find that? Would you agree with that? Did you get more technical?
Yep. You get a very, I mean, if you go in with and you don't have to you can give them what happened on that kick, and I mean they will, the steps and the plant foot and the swing and everything, and it just. And again, I think it's a mystery to them, but golf's a good analogy. And you're right, a lot of these guys are golfers. I mean, whether it's a golfer or a baseball player, whatever, it's somebody that, something that should be fairly automatic and suddenly isn't. And I think it is that mental game of you start wondering, what am I doing? What am I doing? And then I think with any position, you're thinking too much. There's a point of, you and me, we probably don't think, nobody's going to say we think too much at work. I know with me, so there's going to be you should think more. But
and we do
yeah. But kickers, it's better gets in their head.
Better interviewing a kicker about mechanics than it is doing a show with a long snapper, because then you do the whole show upside down.
We could do that. We could do the show where we're looking between our legs into the webcam.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be good. Steve, I don't know if you saw it.
That idea.
I'm just putting some comments up here. But Steve says Mason will be a huge winning factor coming up. Mark his words. So we're going to remember that, Steve.
I hope so. I mean, Now, if he goes out Monday night and misses 3 kicks, I don't know. Sports psychologist time, and I guess he did. He did. Yeah. McCarthy brought the sports psychologist in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what they get paid to do. Yeah. How about speaking of getting paid? I feel like Ollie, because he's the king of the segues. And then if I listen to the show, then I know what to ask you, but I didn't hear when you were on his show yesterday. Ollie.
Thanks for listening, Bryon.
Let's talk about Clinton Dix saying he doesn't think he'll be in Green Bay next year. So where are you going with that? Where are you going with that?
Just walked in the room. He has a Clinton Dix jersey. I don't know. Cole, have you heard this news? Yeah. Am I breaking this? I might be breaking this for my son. Okay. I'm not. I was told. So I don't know. He was doing an interview, I believe, with Jason Wilde, the longtime Packers beat writer, and just kind of threw it out there and said, "Where do you see yourself?" And he's not sure it's in Green Bay. So they picked up the 5th-year option on his rookie contract. He's got 3 interceptions. He's tied for the league lead. Does he miss too many tackles? Yeah, I think so. Has he taken a few bad angles through 4 games? Absolutely. He certainly wasn't happy with, getting stiff-armed in that Lions game. And he talked about that receiver actually, for whatever reason, kind of giving him a hard time the last few times he's gone up against him. But I think he's a really, really good safety. I don't know that his interceptions this year have him back at that Pro Bowl level. I feel like it's still a notch below, but for me, for what I see, certainly above average, certainly a guy you'd want to keep. I think you go back 2 years to that Pro Bowl season, he had 5 interceptions. I think he had 79 tackles, maybe something like 9 passes defensed. Great year. Everybody was super excited. The following year, last year, he had what most people would say was a down year. He seemed out of position. He missed some tackles. He had some interceptions that that, hit his hands and he couldn't pull in. But that said, he had 3 interceptions last year, and he had the same amount of tackles. He had 79 tackles. Morgan Burnett was hurt most of the year. I would, not being a Joe Witt, the defensive backs coach, I would say that from what I know and what I've seen, I felt like last year he was maybe trying to play a little outside his position, possibly trying to cover up for other people, maybe the classic trying to do too much. A lot of people perceive that as a bad year. I think he wasn't happy with his year, but quite honestly, it wasn't far off from that Pro Bowl year. Now we fast forward to this year, and through 5 games of the year, he's got as many interceptions as he did last year. And I've heard people say, well, they hit him right in the hands. You know what? It all looks the same on the stat sheet. Show me a defensive back that ends the year with 6, 7, 8 interceptions, and I'll find 1 or 2 that were just lame ducks that came up, or they were just a center fielder catching it, or somebody ran a bad route. So, much like beating a opponent that you should beat, you got to make the interceptions that are the easy ones, and then you make the hard ones. And certainly that one in Buffalo, I mean, gosh, he lit up Kelvin Benjamin, but it was a clean. He was playing the ball. I mean, that's what a safety.
You never know. You don't know this year.
Oh no, I don't know what gets a flag. I saw J.J. Watt make a hit on a guy. Was it a Sunday night game maybe? I couldn't believe. I mean, head down, speared him in the chest, no flag. So I don't know what's a flag anymore. But I think when you look at Haha, there's certainly things he could do better, but I don't think he's played poorly. So, for him to kind of perceive in his head that maybe he's not somebody that's in their long-term plans, I think is unfortunate. I don't know if that's maybe he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy to just kind of posture to kind of initiate a conversation. I believe players do typically leave that to their agents to negotiate, but I mean, he's a smart guy too. So he certainly knows that when you make a sort of provocative statement like that, people are going to run with it. I mean, certainly it's gotten back to McCarthy and Mike Pettin and Gutekunst that, hey, Haha's out there saying he doesn't think he's going to be with the team.
Did you catch the comment from Randall saying that the Browns defense is on par with any of those that he played with the Packers?
No.
And does that the Demarius Randall autographed Packers helmet that I have will go up in value?
He's not a bad player, and the fact that they shipped him off, I mean, I think that probably tells you what you need to know about, how he fit in that locker room and their perception of him. It was not for lack of talent.
The Browns are turning the corner, though, so
they really are. You know what? You put enough Packer personnel guys down there. I mean, that was going to happen. They know what they're. You look at what look at the success the Chiefs are having right now. That team has John Dorsey's fingerprints all over it. Now he's in Cleveland. So I would say give them some time.
Isn't Elliott down there too with him?
Yep.
Yeah. We'll give him credit. Let's talk about the next opponent, 49ers, Monday Night Football against the Packers. They're really hit with injuries to their starters, and it starts with their starting quarterback.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen I've seen some 49er fans in videos and message boards where it's, talking about getting Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa's little brother, with the number 1 pick in the draft. So, I mean, they seem to be they're 1-4, and they're really kind of writing it off. I don't know if the team is, but man, oh man, they finished last year on a 7-game winning streak. I think everybody felt like Garoppolo was, that Tom Brady heir apparent that was really going to develop into his own and kind of be that next, kind of young gun up and coming quarterback. And he goes down after Jerick McKinnon goes down, the Vikings running back who paired with Latavius Murray last year and was really kind of this exciting dynamic player. So McKinnon goes down, Garoppolo goes down. They've had injuries at receiver with Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin, who was just now back at practice this week. So when McKenna went down, you had Matt Breida step in, and a guy who comes out of nowhere, and he was 5th in the NFL with 369 yards rushing. He got hurt, so they're really he hasn't been formally ruled out yet for Monday's game. If he is, then it's going to go to Alfred Morris. But the guy that's really been the surprise on their team is their tight end, George Kittles. I mean, this guy's a stud, 5th round pick out of Iowa, sneaky fast, and he's their top weapon, and he's the top tight end in the NFL, and nobody saw that coming. So they got to look out for him. And then, I think you go on the other side of the ball, Richard Sherman. People probably have not seen or heard much of Richard Sherman yet this year. He's given up one catch for 18 yards and 8 passes that have been thrown his way. He looks as good as he has ever looked. So it'll be interesting to see if, Devontae Adams ends up over there, if they kind of test him a little bit, or if they try and stay away, which a lot of quarterbacks so far have done. But this seems like a team the Packers should get up on. But again, with their own struggles and kind of inconsistency and slow starts, it could be a struggle.
Keith, you and I are pretty similar in age. So we have a lot of, even though we didn't know each other until the last couple of years, but shared experiences, I would say, like same frame of reference. So I'm sure the same is for you. You kind of get an idea for how old someone is based on the team they like outside of their home team, like the Packers. And I believe people around our age like the 49ers. That was the case for me. So the teams of the 80s, those a little bit older, I think really like the Steelers. A little bit older than that, obviously, it goes to the Packers dynasty. Yeah. Those that came later, it was more into the Cowboys. And I thought of this, too, because of the Bills with that run, with the Packers having just played them. With the 4 in a row, so you kind of have that, too. What's your view going back to when you were younger of the 49ers? Was that the kind of your second team, or did you look at them as some sort of, because they're not a Packers squad?
Yeah. I always felt like I had to root for a team in the AFC so that there was just no conflict of interest for me. I love Joe Montana. I mean, Joe Montana was the best I'd ever seen. And those teams that had Montana and Rice and Rathman and Harris Barton up on the line and Roger Craig, how was Roger Craig not in the Hall of Fame? The first, 1,000-yard rushing, 1,000-yard receiving back. That guy was amazing. You go defensively, you had, Ronnie Lott there, and it was, they were some great teams. I think I always had such a grudging respect for them. I usually rooted against them. I rooted for Boomer Esiason and Ickey Woods, and you had former Badger Tim Crumry. I rooted for them in '89 to beat them in the Super Bowl. But yeah, you talk about those Bills teams too, man. I loved Kelly and Thurman Thomas and Bruce Smith. I was a big Raiders fan too. I loved Howie Long.
Yeah. I got to meet Tom Rathman, a buddy of mine, Casey Marler, and I. We were working together in the middle of Nebraska in Kearney, and Rathman came to the golf outing, and we kind of were there ready to do an interview, and we did that, and groups were going through, and we always thought it'd be kind of fun to be able to play in the outing rather than just cover it. And all of a sudden, the group comes through as a shotgun start, and they needed another golfer. So Casey's like, "Do you mind if I play?" I'm like, "No, of course not. You can play." So they give him some clubs, a couple sleeve of golf balls, and away he goes. And then all of a sudden another group comes through. They needed another golfer. So I got to hop in and had the video camera with me. And yeah, got a nice picture with Tom Rathman. It was pretty cool. But yeah, the Niners, I always had that. I had the Packers helmet. I had the Niners helmet. And then even going back to the Jets early on, early 70s, that was a helmet that I always had as a kid. So so pretty good memories there.
Was Rathman any good, or did he just Happy Gilmore it?
He was pretty good. Maybe he wanted to play like a kicker. We wanted to get all technical with it. It was mostly just shaking hands and kissing babies and smiling for pictures. Yeah. So a picture that I could put right in front of my TV, so it looked like he was a member of the family. Nice. So I guess that was part of the Nebraska family at the time. I don't know.
Oh, that's cool.
How about any other final thoughts on the Packers and the Niners coming up in the spotlight of Monday Night Football?
I mean, I think the big key is to just not let the game get out of hand early, and they can run it more, and they can do more with Aaron Jones. And I think, defensively, they need to get after a passer that's somebody other than Josh Allen. And I think when you look at, CJ, Beathard, this is a guy that they should be able to get after. Again, San Francisco's 1-4 for a reason. So Monday night under the lights, I think everybody's watching. I think not just Packer fans, but I think NFL fans are still trying to wonder, what is this Green Bay team? Are they good? Are they not good? Or, it's right now they are what the record says they are.
That's a good quote. You should copyright that.
So,
Let's put up the graphic for CW Driving School LLP. Thanks to Neil for sponsoring. You can see the information there with the phone number. They're over there in Schofield. Classes always starting up. I know they just did one at the beginning of October, but check them out. Great to have them partner up with us for the broadcast.
Sure.
Keith, I'm going to go back to you. And it's really difficult to kind of throw everything together here and try to host the show and do the graphics. Maybe
all I have to do is just keep talking. You've got the hard stuff.
Keep talking. Keep looking for something to replace Chuck Cecil for next week's show.
We don't know what's behind next week. The big reveal behind the curtain.
So you have to
like a tiger.
Our irregularly scheduled regular broadcast will continue again next week, hopefully after a Packers win. For Keith, for Jana, who is in really bad cell reception area again, we hope to have her back next week. Thanks for watching, and go Packers.
Are you off?